Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your hosts lost in the data storm.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today I will take us to the, at least on this show, rarely covered territory of live-action adaptions, and we'll take a look at the recent Netflix version of the monumental hit series One Piece. After that, John and I will return to space and review the second season of one of the most promising Gundam shows in recent years, The Witch from Mercury. And finally, of course, we'll pick our favorite anime of the season. But before all of that, John will tackle a mini review in The Quick and the Dead. Sounds like an odyssey of a show, so fly the Jolly Roger on the mast of your space pirate ship. Take measures to emancipate yourself from the grasp of your shitty anime parents, and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. So yeah, I originally wanted to talk about some shows in The Quick and the Dead as well, namely the third season of Dr. Stone, the second season of Ranking of Kings, but I didn't manage to get to those yet, and I mean, the third season of Dr. Stone is a two-parter anyway, so maybe at the end of the next season. I don't know, we'll see. But you got something, John.
I'm not quite sure how to describe what happened to Orphen after we last talked about it. So
it's ominous.
I don't know if I liked or disliked it, because I think at this point where they got to in the story is pretty much the end. I think there's other light novels and comic adaptations and whatnot, and this, that, the other thing. I didn't research that too much because that goes beyond the scope of this. And honestly, trying to dig up decisive information about Orphen, short of actually buying and reading the novels yourself, is really difficult from what I found. Like, okay, so the first season was basically, like I said, a retelling of the original adaptation, and it moved at a brisk pace, and it was, pretty well directed and worked out. And the deeper we got in, the more convoluted the story got, and they introduced characters that felt like they didn't really matter. And at the end of all things, I guess Orphen has sealed the power of an evil god within himself.
Okay.
Yeah,
Was that how it wraps up, or was that the big reveal?
That's how it wraps up.
Okay. I mean, sure.
It's so hard to concisely describe because it feels like a lot of things happen, but honestly, not really. Like, I don't feel like it was the breakneck pace of Here Comes the Whipping Boy Again of Index 3, 3 or 4, whatever the last Index season was. That's how out I am on that now. Mm-hmm. But we get to the end of this, and it involves getting to like the Dragon Sanctuary, and we're trying to keep, the barrier between the divine and the human world separate. And it's like, this is the lightest novelist that ever light novels, dude.
And it's an old school one.
Yeah, which is like, it feels like there were parts of the story that could have been cleaned up to be more concise, because I ended up having to rewatch parts of it because I was like, all right, so who is this? What just happened? When is this happening? It was... Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you've read all the novels, you can make sense of it. And I briefly considered like skimming over them to see what I could glean from that. But at the same time, I was like, I could waste my time doing better things.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, I will say that at least Dean kept the production quality pretty consistent throughout. So props to them.
Consistently good or consistently mediocre, which is more like, I don't know, Dean's modus operandi these days, I would say.
I would say decent. I don't think there's anything that I would have been like looking at.
It's not some Deadly Sins level. Oh, I got it.
Oh boy, no, it's not. Oh boy, no, it's not. Mm. But yeah, I don't know whether or not to recommend it, because I walked away from it being like, this was a show that I watched.
Yeah. This kind of non-satisfying, kind of empty feeling of finishing a rather long show, I guess.
Yeah, it ran 4 seasons over the course of 3 years. So.
It started out promising. Like, I remember you reviewing the first season and were pretty much into it, so...
Yeah, I mean, the first season is great because it pared down the original story and was like, hey, this is what you need to know. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Maybe they'll do that moving forward. And I don't feel like they did it well enough. And like I said, there's some characters that come in and it's like, who are you? Why are you here? And then like, okay, sure, dude, fine. Great. There's a guy who wore like this green suit that he called armor, and it could sprout like branches and leaves, and he was somehow immortal. And it's like, cool story, bro. And there was one of Orphen's old classmates who showed up and was like, he married this girl to get this ancient relic from her, but in the end he ended up like betraying everyone else, except not really.
Sounds convoluted.
Yes. Yes, that is the takeaway.
Well, that's a shame. I mean, it can happen. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything with this being older material, but maybe that's also to blame. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know exactly where or who to point the finger at, so...
Whatever they did well in the first season, apparently they weren't able to pull that off with the last one, in terms of, like, paring it down or whatever, or, you know, streamlining it.
Yeah, like, I mean, after the second season with the Battle of Kimlock, and we start to learn more about the Deep Dragons, and, you know, that's kind of... learning about, you know, what Lecky actually is was kind of interesting. And he does this mind meld with Cleo, and it's weird, and then we go beyond that, and it's like, bro, please chill out. But yet maybe someone out there will enjoy this more than I... You know, I don't think I hated this, but it was just like, I had trouble following large parts of it. So that is my takeaway. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
I guess that's all, folks. So, now we're talking about something that we don't do as much on a show about Japanese cartoons. I will talk about live action show, a show with real quote-unquote actors, non-Japanese actors, produced by a non-Japanese studio, but based on a Japanese property, on one of the before-mentioned cartoons. So, yeah.
Does that mean it's still anime, though? Big think.
No. It's an anime adaptation. It's an adaptation of an anime. It's not an anime adaptation of a manga or anything, but it is there, and it is, of course, the most recent thing from Netflix. One of the most foolhardy endeavors that one could partake in. Okay, so they tried, or they actually did. So when I first heard of this, when I first heard, hey, Netflix is doing a One Piece adaptation, I was like, yeah, all right. Yeah, this is gonna work out. Because, hey, you had such great success with Death Note and Cowboy Bebop. Two things. Two anime/manga, mind you, that are much more grounded and much less cartoony than One Piece. What we're going to talk about today. Like,
I gotta say, I forgot about the Death Note adaptation.
Yeah, for good reason. But it's like, hey, okay, Death Note, I can see them doing a live-action adaptation of that, right? It feels like, yeah, that is not too far, like, out of the realm of possibilities. Like, when it comes down to it, it's just a murder mystery. Yes, you have a weird death god in there, but he's not in too many scenes. And aside from that, there's nothing really much going on with special effects and everything, so this is still pretty grounded. Cowboy Bebop, not as much, like, it's pretty out there, but it's still kind of solid, basic sci-fi. So, yeah, of course, you have to invest a lot, you have to do a lot of FX work, but it's still, you know, you can imagine that also with real actors in a real setting, good science, good sci-fi action, good space action. Like, yeah, this all could work if you feel like you need to do this for whatever reason. But One Piece Like, if you've asked me, hey, pick maybe the one anime that you can think of that makes the least sense doing a live action version of that, I would have immediately, the first thing, like, without skipping a beat, I would have said One Piece. Because One Piece is one of the, even for anime, it's the cartooniest fucking show I've ever seen. Like, all the characters look like weird fucking monstrosities to an extent. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Like, they have super different shapes, super different sizes. There are incredibly over-the-top reaction faces everywhere in this show. It's so cartoony in its humor. It has such imaginary worlds that have incredible creatures in them. Where it's like, okay, how can you even make this work in live action without this looking super weird and out of place? Like, when I heard they were trying to do a One Piece adaptation, I was like, this can never work, even if someone competent was involved. And this is not a dig against the people who were actually working in this, but it's like, track record and what kind of stuff Netflix greenlit, apparently. And it's like, yeah, okay, they're just a production house, but it's like, did someone actually read those scripts? Did someone actually look at what director was working on this? So it's like, this is not going to work. What are they doing? So color me surprised when I watched this show and have to say, it's actually a decent adaptation of the story.
Yay!
So heads up for all of you who have not watched the original One Piece yet. This will be full of spoilers for the manga and for the show, at least when it comes to the first couple of arcs, but also some of the stuff that happens later in the story, because I will talk about that. Not in detail, because holy shit. That's a review for another day. And
see, that's a lot to unpack.
Yes, and I would, John, I can't do this on my own, so I would probably have to invite Alex or someone else who also watched the show. I don't know. I don't want to subject you to a 3-4 hour monologue about One Piece if you haven't watched it. So I'll see what I do.
I will tell you what, at some point I'll try and at least watch One Piece so I can get up to speed.
Oh, good luck. I mean, I would be thrilled, but even I am behind on One Piece, so I gotta catch up. But I will, because I'm
Listen, you're not 1,000 episodes behind.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, One Piece, I always say this, One Piece is absolutely worth it, but it's also a big time investment, even in the One Piece version, because it's just a giant story. But yeah, so lots of spoilers, people. 3, 2, 1. You have been warned. So anyway, yeah, this is kind of very trimmed down, streamlined version of like the first season of this adaptation. Of the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arcs, 4 or 5 arcs of the show, of the anime, or the manga, if you want to go by that. So all the East Blue stuff, before our heroes actually get to the Grand Line, which is their goal, like that, because that's where the actual One Piece is. So that's what we get. So we're getting all the origin stories in this. I mean, not all of them, because there are a lot more Straw Hats that are going to be added to the crew down the road, but our main crew for a while. So we have Luffy, we have Usopp, we have Nami, we have Zoro, we have Sanji, and all of their stories, their origin stories are in this. And yeah, of course, the show makes some sensible changes to quicken the pace. This is definitely not a 1-to-1 adaptation. How could it be? Like, this has 8 episodes, I think. And it covers, like, I don't know, 100 episodes of the anime? No, not that much. But let me take a quick look. I should have done this before.
It covers that much?
It covers a lot, but it's not that much. Wait, let me see. Yeah. So, yeah, this covers about 45 episodes of the anime, minus the filler, though I think in those first 44 there is not really any, in 8 full-hour episodes in this live-action show. So you can imagine they slimmed this down a lot. Lots of scenarios get mixed up, story and character scenes shifted around, characters are put where they weren't in the original, and there are a couple of new characters inserted into the mix. For example, Don Krieg, which is like the main villain from the Sanji storyline, is barely in this. But Arlong, the main villain from the Nami arc, has a much bigger role in this. Which is alright, I guess, sure. Show me something new. I always have the anime if I want the original story. It's more important that the stories and characters' core are intact. And they kind of are, to an extent. We got decent actors. But Nami and Zoro are too subdued for my taste in this. Like, in the original, Zoro is a brash loudmouth. And here he is kind of like your stereotypical stoic wannabe cool sword fighter that is occasionally slightly flustered. And in the original, he's really funny when he completely loses his shit because Luffy does something stupid or he loses his directions or whatever. And that's Zoro, right? He's like the cool guy, but he sometimes completely loses his composure. And he's really also a loudmouth that likes to like taunt people and stuff like that at points, right? So he's a lot of fun. In this, he's kind of like your standard cool guy that is sometimes just looking a bit, wait, what? What is happening, right? Like he is not really grasping what is happening in this situation and doesn't know how to deal with it. But it's not like, he's much less cartoony, which is like the thing I meant in the beginning when it said, why would you choose the most cartoony property if you already know that you have to really change a lot of the characters if you don't want to make this a complete slapstick fest? Which they didn't want to do, obviously, apparently. They wanted to ground some of the stuff or reduce the hijinks. It's just some of the characters suffer from that. The actress of Nami feels like she is on autopilot for most of the time. I feel like bad bashing her, but that's how she feels. Like she feels too subdued. She has like kind of like one or two expressions for most of the series, and it's like, yeah. Nami is also more extroverted, very loud, and likes to shout at Luffy and Zoro if they do something stupid, and reacts very forcefully to Sanji's horndoggery. So none of this is really in this with her. Like she's kind of very composed. She's kind of quiet and more mopey at times, I guess. So that it's like some of these characters work. Luffy works super good. Usopp works great. Sanji works great too. He's slightly different. I'll talk about that later. But these two, Zoro and Nami, I wasn't like too fond of. I was like, these are not the characters that I used to like. It's fine if you change up characters, but you should keep the core of those characters intact. And if you change so much about them, they're just not the same characters. And then what are you doing? So it's like, this is not. And you lose some of the fun, right? You lose some of the uniqueness of the characters. Like Nami needs to be a bit bitchy in a fun way, right? And and Zoro needs just to be like a bit too up on his own hype of being the best swordsman and stuff like that, right? And there is a bit of that in here, but not enough in my opinion. So that's a shame. The likeness of the actors is close enough. I gotta say, good casting in that regard. Iñaki Godoy being kind of perfect casting for Luffy. Usopp is good, like I said. Sanji's actor also does a good job being a more realistic version of a smarmy horn dog, though I don't feel enough of a disdain for man coming from him. Like he has like these two modes, like when man wants something from me, he's like, go fuck yourself, and then a nice lady comes around, he's like, oh sweetie, right? Like that. And he's like wants to fulfill all of her wishes, and that is not really in this. Like he's kind of just a nice guy. It's like all the time, which is okay, but that's also again not necessarily really Sanji. So again, loses some of the humor in this. But he's still fun. And has some cool lines and everything. I think the more fascinating ones are the side characters who in the show usually get to have the more outlandish designs. And they did a pretty decent job of adapting those to this version. Buggy, Captain Black, Mary, Mihawk, the Fishman. They're all pretty close to what they are in the anime, which I didn't expect. Like, I thought they would like severely tone them down in their craziness. What you got some great prosthetics on the Fishman guys, some really good makeup, and some wacky, like, kind of fantasy characters in it that where you like at first glance, how do these fit in this universe? But they're here, and of course, it works better in the cartoon, but the makeup and costume department did a really good job in this show of trying to bring these more outlandish characters over. I gotta say, I was surprised how well they did on some of the crazier characters in this. But a lot of the characters look definitely not beefy enough. There isn't much you can do about it since they are real human beings and not drawn, but it's still kind of a shame because some of the villains, especially Arlong, feel like much less of a physical threat because of that, because they're, not as tall, not as like shit brick house full of muscles thing, and Arlong is not even the most like buff guy or buff bad guy. They're gonna be some more down the road, and One Piece gets more and more ridiculous in regards to that. The further it goes into its runtime, there are literal giants running around in this show on a regular basis that are much bigger than other characters.
It's so weird to see, dude.
Yeah, and it's like, how will this happen how will they transfer that to the live action show? Because they kind of can't. Like, they would have to make them all CG or do weird camera tricks, I guess. But
yeah, maybe, I was going to say forced perspective.
Yes, maybe. But also maybe they'll skip all that because Arlong was already kind of a bigger guy than a lot of the others characters. But it's like, okay, this is going to get more and more crazy. We'll see how they handle that. I like that some of the side characters like Kobe, Helmeppo, and Garp get much more screen time in this. Kobe going from doormat to badass was always part of the journey I was interested to see more of, because we don't really get to see that in the original. We see him in the beginning when he's like I said, the doormat of Alvida. I forgot what her if she was spelled with a V or a B. And then, Luffy, he kind of tags along with Luffy for a while, and then he joins the Navy, and then we meet him much later into the story, like a couple more 100 episodes later, and he's like this kick-ass fighter suddenly because he trained under Luffy's grandfather and everything. So I was like, I kind of want to see how he got from there to here, or from here to there. And now we get to actually see more of that. Like, we get to see him actually rising a bit through the ranks, like showing Garp what kind of stuff he is made of, and then becoming actually him and Helmeppo, who was a shitbag in the beginning, actually becoming the personal, like, not assistants, but, the trainees of Garp. So that's cool. That's cool. Like I said, Garp is also more in this, and he is Luffy's grandfather. Which we actually learned very late in the original. So it makes sense to have him actually chase his grandson because he disagrees with his life choices. But we don't get much of that either in the original show. But in this, they do it like that to keep him in the show. And again, makes sense. It's neat for them to have a bit more interaction. We also have some characters interacting with other characters more than they did in the original. There are like some neat scenes with Kaya, who is the friend of Usopp, and Nami that work really well because they have common ground by virtue of both of them losing their parents and everything. So there's some neat dialogue scenes there. And, that's all added stuff, and that's pretty cool. And it's like, okay, yeah, that you did your homework in that regard, and these are some nice additions and some nice ways to change up the show to make this work in this more limited runtime and more limited scope, and, in this format that you chose. The colors are too muted, in my opinion, because One Piece is like the most colorful anime I've ever seen, right? It's so out there. And this one kind of isn't. It tries to go for more like, it's still shiny in a way, but it's not super bright. It's like, it all feels like more earthy colors, and it's not, there are some crazy high contrast colors in there, but it's not, as much as in the original show, of course. And it's like, okay, you're losing some of the brilliance in terms of and the fun stuff to look at that the original show has if you like constrain yourself too much and water it down so much. So that's a bit of a bummer. The sets are decent, though not necessarily all accurate. Some of them are really good. The sheep galleon figure of the Going Merry looks creepy instead of cute in this, in my opinion. Like in the in the original, it's like this smiling goat or sheep head, the smiling sheep head as a galleon figure. And in this, it looks like this weird, like it has this weird death stare.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It looks it looks more creepy than cute. I don't know. So, something just didn't transfer from anime to live action there in terms of design. But most of the sets and, are actually great. And they actually built the Going Merry, right? That's one of the big things that came up in the lead up to this show. It's like, no, a lot of the sets are built. Like, they made a really good choice to not only rely on green screen here, but instead to create some actual well-designed physical spaces for the characters to be in and interact in that come often very close to the ones from the original show. So that's cool.
Oh man, I'm actually looking at a picture of the live action Going Merry, and you're not wrong.
Right?
Like, look at the anime one, it's, oh, hey, that's cute. And you look at the live action one, it's like, ugh.
Yep, it's I don't know if it hasn't haunted my nightmares yet, but we'll see. One big negative for me was the soundtrack. Some catchy guitar tunes aside, it's mostly mid as fuck. Just like Castlevania's.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like the composer listened mostly to the soundtrack of Pirates of the Caribbean and barely to Koei Tanaka's original, and then asked themselves, how can I make this more generic and boring? Like, it's, Bing Sake is in a scene, which is a very important song in the original, and there's a rendition of the original OP, We Are, when the crew takes their ship for its first ride, which is good fan service, but that's kind of it. Everything else sounds like boilerplate Hollywood soundtrack factory. And yeah, I love the original soundtrack of the anime. Like, there's a bunch of iconic melodies in that one, and just is always able to create the perfect atmosphere for the scene that it's in, that is playing on screen right now. And this one feels mostly like background noise, so I didn't like it. I thought this was really, really mediocre for the most part. And I don't know why this is like a thing in these game and anime adaptations for Netflix. Like I said, Castlevania is the same thing. It has, like, in the second season of the original Castlevania show, it has like one song from the game, and the remix of that is not really great in my opinion.
That's it?
Yeah, it was Bloody Tears, and that was it. And I think in this, in the new one, in Castlevania Nocturne, it's in the trailer it has Bloodlines actually, and that sounds really good. And apparently has one more, again, only one in the actual show. I hope
you have this huge library to pull from. What's going on?
Of fantastic tracks, iconic video game tracks, and you don't make use of it. Yeah, I don't get it either, John.
Like that trailer for Nocturne with Divine Bloodlines, I was like, yo. And now you're telling me there's only one other song. I was like, come on, dude.
Apparently, yes. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it's just like, in the original show where it only was one song as well. Maybe at least this one is better than the one in season 2 of Castlevania proper. But same, again, for One Piece. The original soundtrack by Koei Tanaka is fantastic, has a bunch of great songs and pieces, and almost none of these are in this. So it's like, you wasted some potential here, guys, and I don't know why. I can't imagine. Was that the straw that broke the camel's back? Was that the thing that was too expensive to license the soundtrack? I doubt it. So I don't know why there's not more of that in there.
I mean, it's possible the budget was spent on everything else.
Oh, they were trying to go for something different because, like, hey, we want to show people a bit of a familiar vibe, and they know pirate stuff sounds a kind of specific way. If you listen to pirate metal or something like that, or if you watch other pirate movies, there's a specific arrangement of instruments and sounds and melodies that, are used in this that feel very familiar, but familiar to other pirate stuff, not familiar to One Piece. And One Piece is not like other pirate stuff. So why would you go for the other things then, if that is not the show that you're making? So I don't get it. I just didn't like it. So yeah. What I appreciated, though, is them going through a bunch of iconic character outfits from the series in the first season. Usually those only change with the beginning of the next major arc. They even put one of Nami's early beta designs in the show. So that's pretty damn cool. That shows you that some people worked on this, definitely, that have a passion for the source material. And I always appreciate when that shines through in the final product. So, yeah, that was definitely in there. I mean, it's a bit ridiculous because it's like, for how limited their space is for a while and how they travel, they sure carry a lot of clothes around. It's like, how do they pull that off? But it's still cool. It's cool to see them in a bunch of different outfits, and all of them look pretty neat and varied and everything. So, and I recognize a lot of those, of course, because I've been following the original series for a while. It's like, hey, I recognize that from that arc, and that's from that arc, and that's cool. So that's neat. The effects are okay. Some of them just don't transition well to live action. Because it's decent TV CG. And even really good in some parts where you're like, oh, okay, this is maybe a bit above standard. They put some money into this. But, like I said, the original show is cartoony as fuck. And some of that stuff just looks out of place and weird if you try to put that on live action actors. Direction and photography are okay. The fight scenes are really good. Some of the best martial arts choreography I've seen on TV, actually. I was surprised by that. Like, there's some really neat stuff going on, when multiple characters battle at the same time, there's some really neat, like, tag atmosphere to it, where, like, the characters move around each other a lot and handle a bunch of different foes and stuff like that, and work together. And you don't really see that much in the show. But that's in the original anime, with, like, the Straw Hats sometimes working together to fight multiple foes together, hand in hand. And they did that in this show, like showing them actually working as a crew. So I like that a lot. But the extreme close-ups on character faces is something that doesn't transition well from animation to live action. And neither those nor the constant use of handheld camera fit the dialogue scenes. So it's like they tried to pull some stuff over from the anime that definitely doesn't work in live action, or not well. And other stuff, I'm like, why did you not pull that over? Like the soundtrack, right? That's one of the things where, like, that you could have just used the original anime tracks in this adaptation. Would have totally worked. But pulling, like, these weird, constant, super close-ups on character faces in the action scenes, in the dialogue scenes, and then the handheld camera that is not in the original show, that was just this weird mix of things that feel like they don't belong to each other. Like, it's like, don't mesh. And it's like, what? You should have just taken one of these, and then it would have worked. But both, they don't match up. So there were some weird decisions in that. And I'm like, could have done better with this. And another thing that, of course, I mean, not of course, but what I feared and what, of course, happened. Certain key moments, because they're live action, lack the impact they had in the original. Like finishing moves, of course, they don't have as much impact. The scene with Shank's arm, not as greatly staged. The cool soundtrack at that part is missing and everything. When the big reveal happens in that specific scene, people who've seen it know what I'm talking about. Like I said, a lot of that can be attributed to the special effects and the direction, but also to the show rushing through the story at kind of a breakneck pace.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it also makes some sensible changes, like the way Zev loses his leg is much more fitting to that part of Sanji's story than in the original, so that's cool. But overall, the most incredible moments from the original in that part of the story feel just inferior here. The way they're staged, the way they're directed, the way they are shot, the way they are acted, they are okay on their own, I guess, if you don't know the better version. But if you do, it's like, yeah, okay, you did the thing, but lesser most of the time.
Did the bare minimum of it.
Yes, it's kind of like you recognize it. You're like, I know this thing, Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at screen meme. but it's like, there's a better version of this. Like, there's a more fun version of this, a more engaging version of this, a more emotional version of this, right? A more captivating version. And every time we got to these key moments and I knew they were coming up, it's like, oh, now we're going to see this moment from the original show that is such a key moment, so important to this character. And then it's like the soundtrack is not hitting and the editing is not as great and the special effects are not as great and the actor's performance is not as good as in the original show. And I'm like, all of this is all right. It's nice that it's in there, but it's just not, it's not hitting in the right place. it's not working as well. And like I said, if you don't know the original, you still might not see that at all. And you're like, oh, this is a cool moment. And like, it is. But also, there's a better version of this. So it's like, kind of a bummer. I didn't expect them to outdo the original in any of the moments. Far from it. I just hoped they wouldn't fuck it up. And they don't, right? It's like, yeah, these moments are in there. They're adapted kind of well. But this is the lesser version of this story. That's just how it is. And I feel bad for saying that because there's definitely a lot of passion put into this show, and you can see that. You can see from some of the actors to the people who did the stage design, from the people who directed this and everything, who wrote the adaptation of the story, I guess, and who, were responsible for all the little details that were put into this. You knew, okay, there were definitely some people in there who love the original show. And you feel that, and you see that. So I feel bad for trashing the show a bit in that regard, but, I want to be honest. And that's how I felt when I watched the show. And I guess that just comes with the territory, right? Alita, Battle Angel, and Speed Racer aside, few anime to live-action adaptations nail the tone and essence of the original. And One Piece just doesn't fully get it either. It's much closer than I expected, but it feels very much like a Japanese live-action adaptation, only with better special effects, costumes, and sets. It's alright, and again, I feel bad for shitting on it, partially, because you definitely feel that the creators had a lot of passion for the project. There's a lot of love here.
I mean, that's just a matter of how you feel,
Yeah, sure.
At least it's not the universally panned JoJo Part 4 movie.
Yeah, as a reason I've watched that, like, no thank you. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of love here, a lot of dedication to detail, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the original, which I guess it doesn't have to, right? And that is only my opinion, and a majority of people seem to really like it. A lot of old school fans too. So I'm happy for the creators of this, because they clearly have a lot of passion for this project. So I hope they enjoy the ride until Netflix inevitably cancels their adaptation after a couple of seasons, as they love to do.
I'm sure they haven't already.
No, they have announced the second season. Okay. So we'll get that, but this is an expensive show, so I don't know how long they will keep this going. One argument of the side, on the side of people who really love this version, I would like to address, though. Saying that you shouldn't compare this to the original and treat it as just a standalone thing is stupid.
What?
That's deflection by people who can't deal with criticism of a thing they like. It's an adaptation. Comparisons are inevitable. I'm not saying that it has to slavishly follow everything that the original did, and this one doesn't, and I'm fine with a lot of the changes. But it should keep certain things close to what the original did to keep the core of the story and characters intact. Otherwise, it's just a completely different show with the name One Piece slapped on it, and what are we even talking about then? And the show did stay true to some important core aspects of the original, but for some other, in my opinion, important ones, like certain characters' behavior, certain key moments and so on, it didn't, and that's a negative aspect that I can't and don't want to ignore. So, just accept that, please. You can still love the show, it's fine, you can have this, but please also let me have my opinion that I think the original show is still superior. Even though this is a really good attempt at trying to bring that over to live action, which is especially for this franchise not an easy task. But again, in an ideal world, they could have done even better. I don't know if I'll watch any more of this, to be honest. It's interesting, and I kind of want to see where they go with this. But I'm just not the biggest fan of these live action adaptations so far. I mean, curiosity will probably get the better of me. Like, if they get there, how are they going to handle Chopper? How are they going to adapt much more grand scale arcs like Alabasta, Skypiea, or Aeneas Lobby? Like, despite all its crazy shit, the first couple of arcs of One Piece are still kind of grounded, like, in relation. Things get only really wild and really big later down the road and would require a lot of additional budget and effects work. And also, after their first origin arcs, with the exception of Sanji and Usopp, the characters in One Piece don't really change or go through much development aside from getting stronger. Oda compensates for this by throwing new, wacky, and interesting characters with compelling backstories and creative new vistas at the viewer/reader with every new arc. But I don't know if this will work in the adaptation, because at least from a visual perspective, it will be much more limited. So I wonder how the show will deal with that. And I wonder how the show will deal with there being virtually no romantic relationships in this story. Western stories of that genre rarely get around without. And I think Oda has already confirmed there won't be any new forced romance in the show. So we'll see. I mean, he's heavily involved in this, which is definitely an upside. Like, if the original creator is on board, that's a big plus in my book. And you can definitely feel his influence too in this. But yeah, like I said, I doubt Netflix will ever give this adaptation the opportunity to catch up where the manga and anime are right now.
That would kind of take a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you only do 8 episodes a season and like completely streamline it and maybe cut out some arcs and filler and whatnot. But maybe it will get some people to check out the original, be it manga or anime, which is the best case scenario in my opinion with all these live action adaptations. Like,
I know. Philip DeFranco, he does a lot of news stuff on YouTube. He was talking about how, the live action One Piece is great. I'm starting to watch the anime. It's like, oh, Phil.
You've
got a ways to go, but that's cool.
The thing is, if you're in, you're in. Like, that's the problem. I mean, Jeff Thu did a video about this. One Piece is too powerful, so stay away from it, right? like if you once you start this journey, you will not leave it because it's just too good. But it's also a huge time investment, so you have to be careful, right? Once you start, you can never go back, and that's the thing. Because you want to know how it goes on.
Detective Conan, man.
It's much worse than Detective Conan, because Detective Conan is like a bunch of separate little cases that don't really have much connective tissue, and there's not really a continuing plot in this.
I wonder about that when it comes to Conan, because it's been running for about as long as One Piece, and it feels like from everything I've read, nothing has happened.
Exactly. That's the thing. So it's like one of those shows where you can always tune in and you can watch it, and it's like the other things didn't happen, like most of The Simpsons and stuff like that. And I guess that's also a successful formula. But One Piece is different. One Piece has a continued storyline, and Oda is the king of callbacks. Like, in episode 1000, he will call back to shit from episode 10. So it's like, you better like watch all of it. And you can't stop, because it's not like, hey, you're not missing out if you like stop for like, I don't know, a couple of 100 episodes and then jump back in. No. So this is definitely like a ride that you want to stay on. It's not I'll jump out and back in and out and back in anime. So you maybe take a break for a while and then binge watch some of the more battle-focused stories and whatever, just, so you don't have to too much downtime between episodes. But aside from that, you're in if you're in. And yeah, it's a time investment. I feel like if you watch this live-action show and you are like, oh man, this story looks interesting and I want to like kind of know more what happens in the future and everything, just do the manga, because that's much quicker. Even that has a lot of volumes at this point, but it's still easier and quicker to read that than to watch the anime. You lose a lot, in my opinion, because I love the voice actors, I love the music, I love the animation. Not all the time, because sometimes the animation is also not super great in One Piece. It always goes ham when it needs to. But, some of the filler stuff and some of the in-between episodes and things so on. And some of the pacing is really bad in One Piece. I mean, you can circumvent that if you watch the One Piece version. And maybe they'll at some point do a properly edited One Piece Kai version. Maybe once the show is over in 1 million years or something. But, it's... Yeah, I feel like the presentation is worth it to watch the anime, but it is a giant time investment. And you need to be aware of that, because it kind of feels bad to jump ship at some point because, you're missing out. So I would still recommend you watch the anime. Of course, I do, because I've been on board from the beginning and I love this thing. And eventually I will go back and also watch the major arcs of this again. I will probably skip all of the fillers, but I will after watching this live action adaptation, it's like burning under my nails. Like I'm like, maybe I want to go back and start watch the East Blue arc again, and maybe I look at what episodes. Like I said, the East Blue arc doesn't have much fillers. It's just 45 episodes. I could be.
Oh, it's only 45 episodes.
It's quick. It's going quick. So,
I mean, looking at the good old anime filler list website, it seems like One Piece has very little of it compared to how long it's been running.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, after a while, like in the beginning, they do the classic, what Naruto also did. They do whole filler arcs, right? Some of them are actually good. But later on, they just integrate the filler into the actual manga plot episodes. It's just they add more small scenes, they extend some of the scenes that happen in the manga, just doing more panning shots and everything, and they add some additional jokes and stuff like that. And that is a problem because the stuff that is happening in the manga is not equipped to be overextended in some of those arcs, right? Mm-hmm. And you notice that. Like, there's some arcs that suffer from that more than others. And I feel like in the newest one, they have a better handle on this. But it's like, it becomes noticeable. And I think that's where the One Piece version would be doing the best work for you. Once that kind of Dressrosa arc, probably, that's where it becomes really apparent that they're doing that. Like, the latter half of that, where it's like, just go on with it, right? And that's a problem. So, yeah, I still like it. And like I said, the newest arc, Wano Kuni, is great. So I don't know what else to say about this live action adaptation. It has been renewed for a second season. We'll see if we get more after that. But it's, like I said, it's better than expected. If you enjoy it, great. If you don't, I totally get it. I myself feel, I don't know, at this point, somewhat indifferent towards the show. It's not an insult to the source material, but it's also not the second coming of the anime live-action adaptation messiah in my book. You just get a different version of this tale, a good version, which has its very good moments, but overall, looks, sounds, and feels less interesting than the original, and also has less of an emotional impact due to the way this version of the story is told. If you prefer live action over animation, you might get a kick out of this. In my opinion, it just exists. And that's fine. I guess.
Well, that was honestly more than I was expecting you had to say. To be honest.
That's why I want to make it a full review and not, put it in the quick and the dead, because I knew this would be a longer thing once I start talking about it.
Right. But we go from sailing the high seas back to space.
Space!
Space! Mm-hmm. So we get Tim Curry on the line.
Yes.
But that means it's time for The Witch from Mercury Season 2. Mm-hmm. And it more or less picks up right where we left off. I don't recall if we talked all the way up to the very end of Season 1, but...
Probably not. I mean, the first season we don't do spoilers, so...
But yes, there was a... kind of left on a terrorist attack on Planet Quetta, and Suletta, kind of returns to dueling at Astacasia Academy during that, but in between, the very ending of Season 1 is tomatoes. Do you like tomatoes?
It's a running theme in this show. Suletta turned that one guy into a tomato.
Yeah, we're kind of left with this note of Suletta and Miorine are trying to get away from the terrorists. And Suletta just very, very casually just squishes a guy with the hand of her mobile suit. And it's like, oh, God, ugh. And it's incredibly graphic. And when she hops out of the Gundam, she just goes to Miorine, hey, we're safe now, right? And it's just like this very jarring, like,
Yeah,
honey, do you realize what you just did?
Yeah, she obviously doesn't. Like, she is just happy that she saved Miorina. It's like, oh, I just, I did what my mom told me, and I moved just 2 steps forward, whatever, and just crushed that guy, and now everything is honky-dory. Isn't it, Miorina? Why are you looking at me so funny and scared and disgusted and, everything shocked?
And part of what you said is definitely the root of the problem here.
You get more problems in this season, though.
Oh.
The first ones is like 2 crazy girls that we met in the first season, Sophie and Noria, from the Dawn of the Fold, terrorists, freedom fighters, whatever you want to call them, enrolling in the school to ostensibly spy on Suletta and the others. And that of course leads to shit, as one would expect. Yeah, and of course we meet all of our characters again that we got acquainted with in the first season. Like, one of the question marks. I mean, this season at the beginning gives us a lot more question marks, but one of the leftover question marks one from the previous season was Nika. Like, we didn't really know what her deal was yet and why she was doing what she's doing, because she's apparently like a spy. But apparently she started all this to become a bridge between Earthians and Spatians. Like, she wanted to be like the mediator and fuck that up.
like the intention was in the right place, but
it's about to see that, and she gets treated like shit for that for the rest of the season. Yeah, it's either being incarcerated or hold hostage or whatever, and so that sucks.
And meanwhile, during that, Prospera is kind of in the background, wringing her hands and talking about Quiet Zero, whatever that is at that point.
Yeah, manipulating everyone around her. Like, she's trying to convince Miorina to take over Quiet Zero, and we pretty quickly learn that it's a project that is supposed to end all wars. And according,
you know how well that goes in every Gundam series.
Yeah. And according to Prospera, it's Miorina's father's biggest dream. Right. It's like, sure, maybe, but also we can't confirm that because that guy is in a coma.
Yeah.
So that plays well into her cards. It's almost like she has planned it. So
no.
I forgot how Vim Turk died. Guel's and Lauda's father.
Well, that's Guel is trying to get away from. I believe the Dawn of Fold crew has kind of taken one of the vessels that he works on as basically like a junker hostage.
Yeah,
and he tries to get away from them, and he steals one of their mobile suits, and he ends up fighting his father without knowing who it is, and inadvertently killing him. And boy, his brother does not take that well when he eventually finds out.
Yeah, that's much later in the show, but yeah, that definitely leads to some shit. Probably also my least favorite part in this season, because it felt like very last-minute forced bullshit. But we'll get to that. But yeah, Ghoul is like in this season is like at the beginning hostage with the Dawn of the Fold, like Naji's group, who then gets attacked due to Nika ratting them out, which leads to bad times for everyone. I mean, I get why Nika did it, but some of Noria's words ring true because she knows there are kids in that hideout, and the Earth forces of the Benerit group won't take any prisoners. Ghoul gets out alive, and the experience helps unshackle himself to a certain degree from his guilt over playing a part in his dad getting killed, but it comes with a hefty price tag for a lot of people on that base. Kick-ass action scene, though, especially like Olcott going full ham, like, who is not an important character, like he doesn't appear after this anymore, but it was still like, he had a cool moment in that. So, we still got this Damocles thing hanging over Suletta and Miorina is like, still firmly ensnared in the web of her mom. Like, they have this great conversation where she's like, should I not have murdered the guy. And then her mom is like, you did the right thing, Suletta. Miorina will come around.
Will she, though?
Like, what are you saying, woman? Like, also painting it like it wasn't Prospero who pushed Suletta into that direction. What a shitty mother.
Oh my god, dude.
Like, she is horrible. And she stays horrible, like, for the rest of the show. Like, I was like, okay, maybe they're trying to do a redemption thing by the end, but no. I mean, like, the show, we get to that. The show paints it a bit like that. But I was like, no, what are you doing? This is absolutely nope. But yeah. Which we were talking about Sophie and Noria in the beginning, and there's like this event called the Rumble Ring in the school, and they use that opportunity of that like free-for-all battle royale thing happening to attack the other contestants with lethal weapons to enable one of our other important characters from the first season, Shadik, kidnapping his adopted father in the chaos and make it look like he died, maybe? But yeah. That is a very important key moment because that maneuvers Shadik into position to maybe become the next president of the Benerit company, Benerit group, which he seems to be intent on becoming. We just don't really know at this point why. Does he just want to take over? Does he want to be the leader? What are his goals? We can make some assumptions, but at this point we don't really know. But this is like one of these important moments, especially because a lot of people die, and Sophie dies as well in this, which leaves Norea kind of a wreck, because that these two holding together was gave each other a bit of like, I don't know, stability, at least to an extent. They were not really stable people to begin with since we've met them. But after like Sophie dies, like Norea is just, she's losing it hard.
Like, you kind of feel bad for her, but at the same time, it's like, you didn't do good things, so I don't know how bad I can really feel.
I mean, everyone in the show feels justified for what they're doing to an extent, and some of them take responsibility and are like, hey, we know that we're doing shitty things, but it's for a greater good. If that holds true, it's a matter of perspective, but they're like, hey, we understand that we're like, blood is on our hands. But other characters are like, no, this is just justified, this is not revenge, this is justice and whatever. And that's not true necessarily. So, and they kind of, ignore the innocence. It's like, you Earthians, you Spatians. And, but of course, that's the theme. That's a Gundam thing, right? And it's also like a bit of, racism also plays into that and everything. So these are all familiar themes for Gundam shows. So it works. But yeah, Prospera is
awful.
Yeah. So we talked about Quiet Zero before, and that apparently was developed by Miri's mom, like Delling's late wife, to guarantee the survival of humanity. He's apparently also a former soldier, so he has seen the horrors of war. So I guess whatever Prospera says makes sense to an extent, but I still feel like she is like twisting that for her own gain, pushing Miorina into a certain direction, just like she did for Suletta. But for Miorina, she needs a bit more finesse, because Miorina is not as easily manipulated or not as easily convinced, and she knows which is a bit of a weird thing. She knows that Prospera is just playing Suletta like a fiddle, and she wants to get Suletta away from that. But on the other hand, she is behaving a bit too oblivious when it comes to Prospera manipulating her. Like, she shouldn't be as, like, I feel like, hey, you already figured out that she's a bad person who is manipulating everyone around her. So why are you letting yourself being manipulated by her too? This should everything you are doing together with her will probably play into her hands somehow, because she's always one step ahead of you guys. So
I guess I kind of get that from a certain perspective, because Miorina is clearly trying to do what she believes is in Suletta's best interest. Yeah. But in doing so is blinding herself to what should be in her best interest.
Yes.
So I guess I could kind of see that.
And that's a running theme in this as well, right? Like, going back to Miorina's father, who we've always, like, got to know as this stern, kind of asshole-ish dude. he was probably so controlling in regards to Miorina to protect her, but never bothered to think about the damage that would do to her, like the way he behaved, and, you know, he put her into a fucking golden cage. So that makes sense. Like, a lot of characters, especially the parents in the show, you know, are either complete as selfish assholes, or they're like, hey, I'm doing this to protect, you know, my daughter or whatever, but I'm actually not taking her feeling into consideration. And it's kind of sad to see Miorina behave the same way, but it also, you know, helps her later, I guess, understand the perspective of her father and everything, because she kind of behaved the same way as well.
Something, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
The
tomato doesn't fall far from the vine, excuse me.
The difference is she realizes that herself. Her father, you know, needs some pushback. But yeah, if you remember, John, when we did our review in season 1, I made some predictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't dead on with everything.
But
the basics kind of panned out as I suspected. So, Prospera put her daughter Aries' consciousness into the Gundam Ariel because, as she states, Aries' body wasn't able to survive deep space. And now she only exists like as this accumulation of particles in the data storm with a consciousness. And that's the only way she can exist. And now she wants to initiate Quiet Zero to give her daughter freedom by creating just a giant data storm field where her daughter can freely move in. So I guess she went insane because in one fell swoop she lost everything that was dear to her, like her husband, her work, her daughter, and now is kind of like on this single-minded quest. At first I thought revenge, but it's more like the satisfaction. Yeah, it's a selfish quest for sure. Like, but it's also has talked herself into thinking that is what Eri actually wants. You know, making her technically dead daughter happy. And as far as we can tell, she doesn't really give a shit about her not really adopted daughter, Suletta. Suletta is just a tool for her that she has groomed her entire life to become her tool. And we'll talk a bit later about actually what Suletta is. And I have some questions and how that relates to her. But yeah, that definitely, like, that Suletta is second fiddle when it comes to the affection from Prospera shows. Like, Suletta has that she was just a tool for her.
Second, I feel like there's a power gap in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that she's just not as important to, or if important at all, to Prospera, just in relation to Eri. And it shows that she's been mostly treated like a tool for most of the time. Like, Suletta has never learned to really think for herself. She just very slowly started to take a couple of steps in that direction when she enrolled in the school and met Miorina. But sadly, this is also what tightens the strings Prospera has attached to her, since Suletta now thinks, well, thanks to my mom, I got to experience the happiest time in my life and meet the person I love, so my mom's way must be the right way. So even if she has never questioned her mom's guidance before either, she certainly won't start now, at least at that point, at the beginning halfway point of the second season. And she tells as much to Miorina when Miorina asks Suletta if she would kill if Prospera asked her to.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah. I was screaming at the TV.
Even though they didn't want to use Gundams as tools of war. Both stated that. That was the fucking mission of their company. They wanted it to be like medical tools. And right. It's heartbreaking to see Miorina realize how thoroughly entangled Suletta is in Prospera's web. Miorina has a lot of work to do to get Suletta out of her shitty mom's grasp, and she doesn't necessarily make the right choice to how to do that. Because it's not, obviously it's not easy. Prospera is a master manipulator. She's an adult. Miorina and Suletta are kids. And Prospera tries to make Miorina feel guilty for being Delling's daughter, the man who took everything from Prospera, technically. So it's kind of like still a revenge thing for her in that regard. She also wants to install Miorina as a president to get hold of Quiet Zero more easily. And she knows Miorina will probably play along to have a chance of protecting Suletta from whatever Prospera has planned for her. And yeah, it's terrifying to see Prospera work her dark magic, to go with the witch
one
theme.
way to say it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Suletta says in the very end. Like, I don't want the world to turn my mom into a dark magician or something. It's like, I think that should said witch and not dark magician. But okay. But yeah, she really has become a witch. Oh, the irony. That episode where that happens and that conversation and everything is also titled A Cycle of Sin. And it's kind of going for a similar theme as Attack on Titan or Last of Us, of people being dragged into grudge wars and continuing their own vicious cycles they can't escape from due to their own decisions or those of other people. Like, Shadiq wants to break the system of the Banneret group's suffocating stranglehold over everything, really. Like, they feel like, they are responsible for doing the war petitioning and doing these proxy wars on Earth instead of having those conflicts like bloom in space. But his method is also motivated by a personal grudge, so it's born from selfish desire rather than the wish to do actual good, even if that is his final goal. And Belle, also one of the more important characters, who worked together with Prospera on the initial Gundam project, after, much like Prospera, losing everything in the witch hunts, enlisted with Pale and assisted them in doing their own horrible experiments, lying to herself that this would all eventually lead to a better world, so she could live with all the pain she caused. And yeah, that also kind of fits into that theme. I already talked about how trapped Prospera is in her own ambitions and how unscrupulous she is about pulling other people into her machinations. Miorine is the voice of reason here, basically saying that your own old people... in brackets, your own problem. Stop pulling us, the youth, into your mess. That's like, she kind of says that verbatim. You can find a similar statement in some of Attack on Titan's moments, where it questions or condemns, depending on how you want to look at it, the willingness of the older generation to feed the youth into the machinery of war, only to fuel conflicts and vendettas that even they have probably forgotten the true origin of at this point. And I feel Miorina's confrontation of Prospera after learning how severely Suletta is put under her spell has a very big leave the kids alone energy. What do you think about it, John? Did that ring through in a way? Or did you not get that energy from those moments?
No, man, that's 100% it. They just, Prospera's grand ambitions, what she wants to do in the way she's going about doing it, don't really seem to line up. Mm-hmm. And everyone else on the outside of that is trying to do their own thing, right? Mm-hmm. But there's so many, and this is war, this is real life. Mm-hmm. There's all these clashing ideologies, but yes, it does boil down to why are you forcing the kids to do this? You should let them live their own lives, but that's just the world. Yeah.
And it's horrible. And some of the kids kind of adapt to that and form their own mission from that, like Shadiq, right? And, well, to an extent, though not really. He also tries to break out of that, I guess, and he's more interested in Miorine. And what her mission is and everything, and tries to help her with that. But there are a lot of people in the show who feel like, hey, I'm trying to do something good, but the way they go about it is just so misguided. And most of them are adults, so that's how that works. Another thing I noticed in this season, I don't know if it's for a Gundam series, comparatively shorter core runtime, or if it's Okuchi's writing, but man, the storytelling in this season is dense as hell. Almost every episode this season is spinning so many goddamn plates. It's hard to keep track of every development, reveal, and important conversation at times. Definitely merits a rewatch. Like, I don't think I had to pause and rewind so much in any other anime in recent time. Like, wait, what was this? This seems important. I need to write this down for the review. And I need to remember who said that. Like, there's so many stuff that is related to the inner politics of the Banneret group. And then, the conflict between the Spatians and the Earthians. And then what mission each little faction has for their own and how that progresses. And like all of these things, there's so many different parties whose plot progresses synchronously, like at the same time, at breakneck pace at certain points. And you're like, wait, what is that? What happened here? What happened here? Oh, wait, I lost track. I think the most problematic part is like keeping track of all the different parties, I guess, in the bigger political conflict. In the Benerit group, and, you know, in the Spacians versus Urshan's conflict. I was like, who is the Space Alliance, whatever? At some point, who was Cathedra again? So I had to look that up, and there are a lot of people in this show.
Yeah.
That do a lot of things. So, yeah.
To say it has a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
An understatement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is definitely a very, very dense show. So don't feel bad going back in certain episodes and trying to rewind some stuff and trying to understand what is going on. Because usually I don't have much problem of keeping track in that. But in this one, it definitely felt at times like, okay, I feel like about 1 million things happened in the last 10 minutes. So I need to go back and check again. And that doesn't only go to the plot itself, but also character development. So it's like, because you have a giant cast in this, and everyone is doing something. It's like, oh, what was Chuchu doing right now? What kick-ass shit did she do again this episode? And what are with the other characters from this group, and the students from the school alone? Like, there's such a giant cast. And then you get all the other different parties added to that. And like, okay, we have like at least 2 Elans. When are we talking about who at which moment? Who is this Elan? And what is happening with Guel at this moment? And what is happening with Suletta and Prospera and Belle and the weird creepy ladies from Pale? And there's so many different set pieces and people to keep track of. So it's a lot. But yeah, I don't mind the show being demanding in that kind of way. Like I said, it merits a rewatch because you probably will pick up on some more little details if you watch it again that you missed, because, like I said, there's so much dense stuff happening. Speaking of previously about people making bad choices, John, what did you think about Miorina's plan of sabotaging Ariel to have Suletta lose the duel against Guel? I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't think it was the right choice.
I mean, it obviously was, but I also I get why Miorina is doing what she is doing. I mean, we said this before, it's to take all the responsibility on her shoulders and trying to subtract Suletta completely from all the bullshit that Prospera is up to. I get that.
But also, look, you're leaving your husband behind.
Exactly. Unfortunately, she's also playing directly into Prospera's hands with this, because that kind of distances her, like Miorina, from Suletta and vice versa. And Miorina is the most positive influence in Suletta's life that has a chance of turning her around, and actively pulling her from Prospera's grasp.
Yeah, I was going to say, Miorina acts as the shield between her and her awful mother. Yes. So it's like, why did you do this?
Why would you willfully jam a wedge between you two? You love each other, and also you are the best protection against a crazy mom. Don't do this. Not this way. Isolating herself from Suletta is gonna make Prospera's grip on Suletta even stronger. And I felt that was pretty short-sighted and dumb anime protect logic. Considering how maturely a brewing misunderstanding was handled between them in season 1, where they just talked it out, it was kind of disappointing to see the story going the standard route of, oh, it's obviously a bad choice, but she's just trying to protect her, you see? Isn't that tragic? It was unavoidable! You can explain it away with the characters are still teenagers. One of them has also the emotional maturity of a preschooler, to be exact. But that's just lazy. It also goes against with how Miorina's character development was set up last season. Stepping out of her father's shadow, becoming a competent leader in her own right, admitting and acting on her feelings for Suletta in the, grown or growing adult way, not in the misguided anime character way. This kind of flies in the face of that. So I didn't get that decision from a writing standpoint. It's like, this kind of doesn't make sense for that character. She might be blinded by her love for Suletta and trying to do the best thing for her, which is like, hey, this is a theme in this show. But it's like, for this character specifically and how she behaved in the first season, that kind of doesn't make sense. There might still be some baggage playing into that she has because she witnessed Suletta committing a murder and everything. And that might make her want to distance herself maybe a bit from Suletta, but also it doesn't feel like that's why she is doing that. And I don't know, it just didn't work for me properly. Like, it didn't make sense for that character specifically for how Miorine was developed in season 1. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like, Miorine pulling Suletta over to her side with honesty and showing her the strings Prospero has on her and slowly cutting them one by one through actual love and actual guidance would have been much better and wouldn't fly into the face of all her development from season 1. Like, in her candid conversation with Suletta from season 1 that I liked so much, she seemed like a fresh breath of air for the league of short-sighted Gundam teenagers that tend to make somewhat understandable but ultimately bad decisions. But this scene kind of has Okuchi going back on all of that good stuff in favor of standard first anime drama. And that was kind of disappointing. And it was not a con by Miorine to fuck with Prospero, which would still make this a horrible disregard for Suletta's feelings, by the way. But it wasn't that either. It was like, she was just doing it. And it's like, this is obviously not going to work out. What are you doing? Like, this doesn't fit what you've been doing so far, and this is not how you behaved so far, so this feels weird. But yeah, it was nice to see Guel finally come into his own, though. Like, he has some character development in this, especially considering the dipshit he started out as. Like, he was the kind of most detestable, slimy, grandstanding bitch-ass in the first half of the first season, right? Like, completely blind and dumb.
Yeah, I mean, he was just, whatever, all about himself. I'm the toughest, whatever, I'm going to marry you, Miorine. But his turnaround is really good, I feel like.
Yes, he definitely like goes from, hey, this is all about me, to, oh, I'm just going to do this for Miorine, I'm going to do this for others. And I feel like he handles this better in regards to other people and what he's doing than maybe Miorine does in certain parts.
I mean, sometimes people handle trauma differently, and sometimes people come out of it, a lot more mature than others.
And that, all that, even though he's still traumatized by what he experienced and is visibly shaken at times. But yeah, I liked his character change, growth in this season. I thought he became a really neat character. And I like that. And yeah, then kind of this, after these important moments in episode, this becomes kind of like this presidential race, I guess, for a very short while between Shadik and Miorine / Guel, because Guel is now her fiance, and Miorine wants to take over the company and everything, or is kind of the president in spe already, because she's the daughter of the actual president. So that is kind of the plot point, and she tries to maneuver the company into a space, or the group, the Benerit group, and her company into a place where they can actually use Gundam for good things and try to clear the poisoned air between the Earthian and Spatian people. And after their big breakup thing, Suletta acts like she's fine with what happened, but like, Choo-Choo sees right through her, which is great. She's probably one of the best characters in this show, if not the best character.
Dude, Choo-Choo, she's awesome.
Yeah. She starts us like, oh, wow, you were complaining a lot about about spaces and everything.
Honestly, I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah, I don't... But yeah, she comes off as a bit pig-headed and everything, but she is, this really fun, stubborn character, a real loudmouth and everything, with really big hair. And you see that there's actually a very empathic person underneath that, that loud exterior and everything. So it's cool. And, because Nika rubbed off on her, she drags Suletta to see Miorine, and ropes almost everyone else of their crew in to help. But that actually doesn't happen. They don't meet. They don't have their talking over, their heart-to-heart yet. Because someone calls out to Soletta when she is at the same station that Miorine is supposed to be at. And that is Eri, who is still an Ariel. And she and Soletta finally has a conversation. And Eri basically tells her to unchain herself from Eri and her mom. I think Eri genuinely cares for Soletta, other than Prospera. But even if her mom says, yeah, you're right, that girl should live freely, she has shown us many times that she actually doesn't give about Soletta. Like
she says that.
Yeah, but she doesn't need it. Yeah, she doesn't have a use for Soletta at this point anymore. That's it. I mean, Eri probably interprets it a different way because she's, technically also still a kid. But it's okay.
But also, Eri and Soletta have kind of been together the whole time, technically. Yeah. So Eri has seen this. And I think when she says to Soletta, maybe you should not involve yourself anymore, I think that for her comes from a real place.
Yes, but it's also kind of the same thing that Miorine does. She doesn't really ask Soletta what she wants. Nobody does. Really.
It's true.
Like, Prospero doesn't care, and the other characters just think they know Prospero doesn't care what's the best for Soletta. But, Eri and Miorine are like, yeah, this is the best for you, and I just make that decision for you. I don't ask for your opinion. And that is shitty. And this is obviously not what Soletta wants. As bad as her mom's influence is, she wants to stay with her mom. And she wants to stay with Eri. She wants to stay with Ariel. And she cares for both of them, even if she maybe shouldn't, at least not for Prospera. But we have this very heartbreaking moment where Prospera and Eri/Ariel take off, and Soletta is left alone crying in space, crying her eyes out alone, and that's heartbreaking. It's really, really sad scene. Also, Eri says that Soletta and a bunch of the other kids we see are Repli children that were created from Eri's genes to fill in for her to pilot Ariel, I guess. Because Eri wasn't able to focus enough of her consciousness inside the data storm to fully become Ariel and control it at this point yet, I guess. So that's where my questions come in. Did all the other Repli children die because they couldn't withstand the data storm? And is Soletta the first one who can? Or were the other Repli children immediately infused into the data storm to support Eri? I quite didn't get that.
I'm not certain.
Yeah, me
but
either.
I kind of get the feeling it was that they died because, we've seen as, the pilots push their permit scores up and up that has some weird adverse effects. And, maybe that was part of it and their bodies just sort of, and they died. I mean, I have to assume that's the case because there's no evidence to the contrary.
Maybe the other ones didn't match perfectly with Eri's consciousness or whatever in the data storm, and that kind of killed them or stuff like that, and then they became part of it.
But yeah, that's what I'm wondering because we don't see any other characters that look different, but it could also be that were the fin funnels just also clones of Eri, and that's how.
I'm not even sure that they're clones. Like, they say they have the same genes partially, but also Soletta looks different than Eri.
But we also don't know what Eri would have looked like grown up.
That's true. So I don't know. I don't know if
there's a lot of
marks.
Speculation and questions.
Yeah, and they don't clear all that up by the end of the show. You can make some assumptions like, yeah, maybe they got all cloned, and Soletta is the first one that had the most potential and could sync up with Eri the best, or maybe at that point so many other Repli children had died that it helped Eri to better focus her her consciousness, and thus could protect Soletta better from the data storm effects. That could also be because that, as we later learned, that is what helped Soletta being able to actually pilot Ariel, right? Once Eri doesn't protect her anymore, because later Soletta uses a different Gundam, the Caliburn, she feels the full effects of the data storm, because she has to get to permit score 5 or whatever it is to control that thing, and it takes a toll on her body.
I mean, I wonder if there's some information on that in some supplemental material ever somewhere, but
I intentionally didn't look it up because I mean, I just finished the show, so I didn't have the time. But I didn't look it up during the show because I didn't want to spoil myself. So it's like, okay, yeah, I guess maybe this is how it worked, and Suletta is just the last surviving member. But also, I didn't quite get it. Or it seems like there were more than one Ripley child. It wasn't just Suletta. At least that's how it sounded.
Yeah, that was definitely the implication.
Yes. So, and that's what I assumed when we watched the first season, that like each of the gun bits is one of those children that died, or has the consciousness of one of those children that died. And I think Eri also speaks of a covenant of, or coven of children, coven of Ripley children, when she talks to Suletta about the whole thing. So, yeah, this is still a part that's a bit unclear. So what actually happens, I don't want to give Prospera the benefit of the doubt. I would doubt she would willfully kill the other children to help Eri focus her consciousness or whatever. I don't think that's what happened. The children just weren't able to withstand the data storm when piloting Ariel and died. And she obviously didn't care enough to stop because she deemed those kids inferior or whatever. But that's like the most sinister thing in this show. It's like that the show kind of glosses over, actually. Where it's like every time like Prosperous, nobody is like, hey, you apparently killed a bunch of children.
That's fine, don't worry about it.
To just get to your original daughter. You are really shitty. And it's just like, we get to the worst part of that happens at the end of the show. But yeah, that's still like, it feels like the show is kind of downplaying that aspect of it. It's like, wait, does that mean you had like, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7, 8 children that died in her quest to create something that would, or create a child that would be able to fly the Gundam to fulfill her mission to get to Quiet Zero? So,
given her character's disposition, I wouldn't put that out of the question.
Oh, absolutely not. And that, is like, yeah, that makes me really question one of the things that Suletta says to Prospero by the end. It's like, what? We get to that. But yeah, we have some smaller quabbles in the show between our main student cast, where Martin ratted Nika out to the management company because he thought she was partially responsible for Noria and Sophie wreaking havoc during the what was it called? The Rumble thing. Rumble Ring. But he's forgiven, and the crew kind of sticks together. Like they have like these small conflicts in their own little group. But
that's teenagers.
Yeah, but that is thankfully none of that leads to like this overblown drama, and it's pretty quickly resolved. Most of the characters are either forgiven or they're like, hey, I think what does Chuchu say to Nika? Like, I'm not forgiving you. So tell me, so when I get back, let's talk about this. Tell me from A to Z, because otherwise there's nothing there's nothing to forgive, right? Because I don't know the whole truth. So that's neat. That's like I said, there's a reason Chuchu is probably the best character in this. And has great character growth. So, yeah. So the ties, the bonds in this group are very strong. And they were in season 1, and there are seasons 2. So it's nice to see that continued. Yeah, and the finale of the second season is kind of initiated when Miorina and Guel go to negotiate with the Earthian protesters, but make the mistake of letting Prospera accompany them, who instantly...
Why?
I don't know. I mean, because she can pilot Ariel and protect her, but whatever. But Prospera instantly stages an armed conflict between Spatians and Earthian forces as a cover of her taking out Shadik's hidden Gundam machines that he wanted to use to become president of the Banner Group to just then dissolve it. He is adopted, as we've, I think, learned a bit early in the season, an adopted Earthian war orphan who has experienced firsthand the horrors of the group's war petitioning. So this is all in service of dismantling the system. He says if Guel wouldn't have interfered, he could have dissolved the group peacefully, which, lol, what exactly was peaceful about any of your plans, Shadik?
the thought was there.
I mean, there could definitely have been more bloodshed if it came to an open conflict between the different factions of the group, and Prospera is probably most to blame for the escalation, and he says he will shoulder his sins, but still, LOL Shadiq, Lamau even. It's like, at that moment, I really had to laugh out loud. I was like, yeah, I would have brought this to a peaceful conclusion. It's like, what?
Sure.
You're doing great so far. The battle between him and Guel in space is pretty cool, though. Which Norea uses this opportunity to get to her Gundam and go on a rampage, attacking everyone and everything on school grounds, which apparently I think is also Shadiq's doing. I think he's the one who unlocks that door and lets her go on a rampage to get the what is the full name of that overseeing thing, alliance? God, what was it called?
Space Assembly League?
Space Assembly League, right? He wanted to get them involved to kind of help dismantle the group, because they wouldn't get involved unless Spatians were in danger. So that's why he let her go on a rampage in the school again. I think that was part of his plan. At least that's how I interpreted it. Yeah, but Prospera did that because I think whatever Shadiq was planning to do, like dissolving the company, I think she was on his track. Like, she knew she was kind of trying to do something there, and that would have put a dent in her plans. Like, she needed the resources of the Benerit group with Miorine like as a figurehead and Guel to make her like reach Quiet Zero and everything. So that's why she, and other Gundams are a risk and so on. So that's why she did what she did, I assume. And yeah, so that's how that escalated and leads to, a bunch of more dead people on Earth, I guess. Or among the Earthian protesters anyway. And the Spatian forces too. But yeah, the duel between Guel and Shadiq is cool, and Guel wins. Shadiq is taken prisoner. Elan gets through to Norea just long enough for one of the Cathedra mobile suits to kill her. Which in turn makes him lose his shit and flee the school in Sophie's Gundam. Well, I don't know which Elan that was. Was that the Elan that later is with the Pale Ladies, or with the Pie Ladies, or with the crew that infiltrates Quiet Zero? I wasn't sure. I probably should have paid to, because I think they have slightly different. Has slightly different hair or earrings or whatever, but I didn't pay attention enough, so I don't know which that version of Elan was.
I mean, I don't remember precisely which one it was, but I think he was referred to as Elan 05. They kind of started to run together a little bit.
Yeah.
I tried to follow it, but at a certain point, I was like...
And those two kind of behave the same way-ish. Like, the first Elan was kind of like this depressed, very solemn kind of guy. And the other two that we meet in this season, I think it's only two. I'm not sure. They behave more like, they're more jokey. They throw out some verbal jabs and shit like that. So I'm not sure. Maybe there are more than two. I lost track. There's also the one that is in the data storm that later helps Suletta save the day. So I don't know. There are a bunch of Elans, whatever. But yeah, what was nice to see is that this whole experience, like of the school being attacked and everything, a lot of the school is destroyed, a lot of people lose their lives and everything. But this experience seems to have led Suletta to become more confident. All the stuff that she has experienced in this season, like the way she is managing supplying the survivors with the essentials, is far from the insecure shy girl we've met at the beginning of the show. All of that can be, of course, attributed to Miorina's influence, but it's also she being hardened through experience and doing the 2 steps forward stuff, which, yeah, it's coming from a bad place because it's coming from her mom, but in this case, it helps her grow, and she pulls the gang together to free potential survivors from the rubble and everything, so she becomes more of a leader, and that's nice to see. Like, she's definitely growing as a person in the second half of this season, and yeah, that's also to her benefit. And everyone gets tomatoes in the school. That was nice to see. Also, the password for Quiet Zero apparently was hidden in the tomatoes gene code or whatever later, which was a message from Miorina's mom to her, I think, which was, I love you, still love you, Miorina, or whatever. And she needs to use that as a password to get into Quiet Zero later, which was cute. This was like a cute thing, but also the way, like, matter-of-factly Suletta tells that to her, I think, at a certain point, it's like, that feels like it should be a bigger scene. Also, how the fuck did you think to actually look for that? Or stumble across that? What the hell?
Yeah, that was like, okay, dude, your top anime contrivance right there.
It's like, I know you're trying to tie this all back to tomatoes and Suletta having tomato-colored hair, whatever. But
tomatoes. Am I a tomato? Big O.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it was funny and cute, but it was also pretty stupid. But yeah, the pale lady sees this moment of confusion and everyone kind of losing their shit and position themselves as whistleblowers who want to uncover the heinous things Benerit has done, jumping ship, even though they, of course, have been playing their part in those things as well. But with that, the Space Assembly League decides to act and initiate a forcibly intervention against the Benerit group and against Prospera once she enters the field with Quiet Zero. But so that happens next, and then since Shadik has been arrested, Zarius Grassley has been retrieved, and he wants Miorina to shift all the blame to Grassley so Benerit can save face, but Miorina doesn't want that. She wants to find a different solution, everything, but she also has to witness more and more people getting killed due to partially her decisions. So that kind of really puts her into a bad place. Things are not looking great at this moment for everyone involved. And because everyone knows in the back of their head, Prospera's gotten her hands on the Quiet Zero now, probably, and she's going to do something with it. We need to do something about that. Bell and someone else, was that also someone from the Space Assembly League, I think, forgot his name. They ask Suletta to pilot another Gundam, Caliburn, to be able to stop Prospera and Ariel from activating Quiet Zero and probably killing a lot of people, because Quiet Zero kind of, like, it can use its drones to create a wild-scale data storm field that enables Ariel to control anything enveloped by that field that is using permit technology. So basically anything. And Prospera promptly uses that to destroy an entire fleet of the Space Assembly League. So much for creating a peaceful environment for her daughter. It's like, all right.
I'm creating peace by destroying everything in my path.
Yeah, which is a kind of, again, like a returning thing in Gundam, which a lot of these people who are like, I want to create peace on Earth, and my method of that is violence.
Hey, do you remember Gundam 00 and its armed interventions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Celestial Being is kind of the same thing she's trying to do, but she is doing it for other reasons. Like, she's not trying to create world peace for any higher goals. She just wants a place for her daughter to live and her being able to actually live together with her daughter. So it's not even as great of a goal and as selfless of a goal as the leader of Celestial Being was trying to go for, with the same bad methods, mind you.
Yep.
But then I got pretty pissed off because I realized Lara gets to be the last minute left field idiot who holds Miorina responsible for everything because it doesn't know anything. Love those characters. Like, hey, did you know there was a Gundam show where they made that kind of person the main character? It was called Gundam Seed Destiny, and it sucked. Don't do this.
The less said about that, the better.
Shin is the worst character in Gundam. Prove me wrong. Like, he's a nightmare, and I was scared that Lara would also, like, go that route. You know, and he attacks the ship and whatever, and Guil interferes, but thank God Felsi puts an end to the stupid fight between Guil and Lara. She definitely is the MVP of not letting this become a frustrating ending. I was really happy when that happened and not, one of those two died because of stupidity. So that was good. Guil and Suletta have an actual fencing duel so that for Suletta to be allowed to talk to Miorina, which is another reference to Utena. I appreciated that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. It was, huh?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's another reference to Utena that I'm not going to mention. But that also jumped out at me. But there's probably more than that. Like I said, I've only seen clips and reviews of Utanase, but some of those scenes I recognize, like, oh yeah, this is definitely a callback to that. And this was definitely one as well. And yeah, then Suletta and Miorine, who is deeply depressed about causing so much death with her decisions, finally have their much-needed heart-to-heart. Should have happened earlier, but it finally happens. And Suletta lets Miorine know that she knows what Miorine is going through, because she also caused a lot of harm, finally realizing that, while thinking that she was doing the right thing. She says that working through the aftermath of the attack on the school has made her realize that she can't take anything of that back. She can just vow to do better. And I feel like both of them are a little too willing here to shoulder the brunt of the guilt, because they are kids who were manipulated by a very shitty adult, a thoroughly damaged and wronged adult who is taking it out on the world because she can't deal with her enormous loss, most of all that of her daughter, and tries to hold on to whatever memory she has left of her. But still, she is an adult. Prospera is most to blame here, and so far she hasn't really shouldered any of the responsibility. So it kind of felt like, hey guys, yes, you made bad decisions, but also you're still kids. And a lot of this shit happened because a shitty person maneuvered you into that position. So it's nice that you're taking responsibility, because that person definitely doesn't. But just maybe don't be too hard on yourself here. Yes, this is horrible things happened, and you're definitely partially to blame for that. But the brunt of the blame lies with someone else here. Absolutely. So, but this also, helps them get over this shit. So that's good why they come to that conclusion, and why I was happy with it. I don't know how you felt about this moment.
Listen, I feel like all I need to say is that Prospera is a bad person, and she deserves everything she gets.
That is the problem, John. She doesn't really get what she deserves. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but
Yes. Yes. But I liked this scene. I thought it was great. Could have maybe gone a bit longer. I would have liked for them to have longer conversation about this. But they make up, which is nice. I would have liked to see also a more, cheesy version of them reuniting with a big hug and everything. I mean, a kiss is probably too much to ask, but they hold hands. At least there's that. I believe this is the first time also that Miorine lets herself be seen in a disheveled, not perfect, not glossed up version by Suletta. That shows a new level of trust. So that's cool. I like that moment between them. But, maybe they could have gone a bit longer on that and have a more longer, earnest conversation between that. But like I said, the show is super dense. And this was very close to the finale. So I guess they didn't have that much time on their hands left. But yeah, it was still a nice scene. And yeah, Quiet Zero's power is only 60% yet. So Prospera needs to get her hands on some MacGuffins to raise its range, which gives Suletta a window of opportunity to stop Eri and her mom. A big decision she has made herself. Yay, progress.
Gasp.
Yeah, finally. But even with Eri's genes, like I said, giving her some defense against the high permanent score, it's still really taxing for the body to pilot Caliburn. So she's constantly trying to catch a breath and everything. And it's really taking a toll on her body. So she doesn't have that much time. It's ticking timer for more reasons than one. This comes an additional factor into this. Also, what really stuck out to me at that moment and later, probably the final climactic scene and everything, the soundtrack is so good. I mean, it was already great in this season, in the previous season, but I feel like it really goes, takes it up a notch in this season. There's so many cool moments and cool tunes in this, and it is really one of the most epic soundtracks I've listened to in recent time. It's really good. I don't know. I assume you liked it too.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was hitting all the right notes when it needed to, man. It had me going pretty strong to the end.
There's also this great moment that is also nicely highlighted by the soundtrack, where Choo-Choo is actually able to pilot her mobile suit without permit technology, which is quite a feat. Everyone says oh, this is too hard. You can't do that. And then she has a bit of trouble in the beginning, but then she makes it happen. I'm like, man, yes, you are, I guess, the coolest character in this. the Assembly League intends to blast Quite Zero into oblivion with a big space laser, which is also kind of a staple of Gundam. No matter the collateral damage and casualties, so they are also shitbags. Good to know. And all the higher-ups are shitbags in this. Oh, fuck the adults, I guess. And the pale hags rejoice because they have positioned themselves to rebuild whatever is left under of the Benerit group under their leadership. Gross. I hate those people. But yeah, we have Suletta fighting Eri. We have the gang infiltrating Quite Zero, trying to turn it off, encountering some Terminator heroes, which that's something you don't see every day. Like these security hero bots that attack them with I don't know, do they even fire missiles? I'm not sure. But they definitely have machine guns.
You just think of Haros just being like, oh, everyday helpful bots. And you have these Haros that are machine gun equipped, and it's like, oh.
Oh, no. Yeah. Kind of crazy. We have a heated dialogue in the middle of that battle between Prospera and Miorine. Prospera out here still pretending to give a damn about Suletta. And Miorina's right. Love your daughters equally instead of playing favorites, you selfish bitch. And of course, one of the last things she does is trying to manipulate Suletta into reconnecting Ariel to Quite Zero. Even place the I'll be paralyzed soon, so fulfill my wish, please, K-Thanks, bye card. But thankfully, Suletta doesn't fall for this anymore. Like, go fuck yourself, lady. At least at the end, after Suletta saves the day and Quite Zero and the Gundams dissolve into the data storm, she apologizes to both her daughters, but that's the least you can do. Like, really, the least. Wow. I was not expecting this. I said, maybe she will come around because, you know, there's this moment where Suletta fights Eri and she has, like, this heartfelt message where she's like, no, I want to stay with you. I want to save Mom. And when I hear Mom crying, I want to protect her. And I want to protect you and everything. And for this moment, you see, like, Prospera has this frown on her face and she's about to cry or something. Like, oh, would she finally feel like, oh no, this is how she really feels about Suletta? And then she goes down and tries to stop Miorine and says this shit. And I'm like, nope, you are irredeemable. You are horrible. You are the worst person. You are like the mom from Hanebad. You are a despicable human being. What the fuck? Prospera is not great. That's all I'm saying with that. But speaking of dissolution and fuck you, ladies, Miorine dissolves the Benerit group, and this torpedoes all the plans of the Pale Hags, who finally for once lose their composure and eerie grins, which is great.
Yeah.
Only to be greeted by a satisfying smirk on one of the Elan's faces when he finally emancipates himself from their influence. All the kids are gaining their freedom from their shitty anime parents in this episode. You love to see it. The ending is kind of cool in a somewhat climactic way, with Suletta, with the help of, again, guess the data storm ghost of one of the Elans and Eri, is basically creating a personalized data storm field that enables Eri to stick around with her, I guess. I didn't quite get what they were doing, but it dissolved the Gundams and Quite Zero, and I guess Eri stuck around somehow. I don't know how she did it. But I feel like she is like she talks to Miorine in one of the final moments of the show through a comm. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear.
At first I thought she was talking to Petra, right? And they were like, you know, because she was talking about sister-in-law, and it was wait, is she now back to being the fiancée of Guel? But apparently not. Apparently she's now married again to, or technically engaged to Suletta. And yeah, so I wasn't quite sure what that was, right? And how that was wrapped up. But I think Eri was still around, and Prospera is definitely still around. She's in a wheelchair and is partially paralyzed, like she said she would be.
Whoops, oh well.
Oh no, what a nightmare. You had worse coming, lady. Let me tell you that. But apparently, I mean, Eri says that, or Soletta says that she wants to stick around with Eri and her mom, or Eri says the same thing, that she's going to stick around with them for a while. So I don't know. She might be still around. I don't know how this actually wrapped up and where Eri is, if she's still around or not, or if she dissolved into the data storm. I feel like that is not made absolutely clear. But the person that Miorine talks to at the end might have been Eri. I'm not sure. I would have to look at this again. I would have to check maybe the episode summary and so on. But that was not super clear. But kind of happy-ish end to this, because Quite Zero is gone and the space laser is disabled and everything. So that works. What I didn't love was seeing Soletta saying something along the lines of, "I support your decision, Mom," at the end there, because that feels like the series is legitimizing her Prospera's decisions to an extent. Yes, she partially did what she did for Eri, and not for revenge, but she caused pain to a lot of people, and a lot of that was out of selfishness, because that's what neither of her daughters wanted. So that kind of sucks. And her apologizing to both of them lessens the bad aftertaste a bit, but not entirely. So I was like, yeah, we didn't need that last sentence. Like, that is from Soletta to her mom in that regard. It's like, "I support your decision to take this path." It was like, don't do this, Soletta. This is not, I don't support this at all. I don't know how you felt about that moment, John. I was like, yeah, you just should have not put that in the show.
Should have let Prospera die in obscurity.
Yeah. And I thought they did. I thought the only one who didn't dissolve, I thought she dissolved with in the data storm, just like the Gundams and Quite Zero. But that didn't happen, and suddenly she's in a wheelchair in the epilogue. I was like, what? She's still alive? What the hell? So, yeah, weird. It feels like she would be one of those kind of tragic Gundam villains that dies at the end, but she wasn't. I mean, she will die eventually. You know, she's paralyzed and everything, but she has permit poisoning or data storm poisoning. But still, it's like I expected her to be gone, and I feel nothing good can come from her still being around, even if she has apologized to her daughters. So, I don't know. That was a bit of a weird end to think on. But I get my big hug of our two main characters, and they seem to be together at the end, so that's really nice. And, you know, most of the people live their lives, and they seem to live a, you know, happy life. We have like this 3 years time skip, right? For the final couple of scenes. We see everyone a bit more grown up, and, you know, Nika.
Except Bandai Namco seems to think that Miorine and Soletta aren't married. Like, shut up. Yes,
that was also a thing that bugged me. Like, apparently, in an interview with, was it Gundam Ace? I think so. I think one of the voice actresses said that she really liked that the two are married, and that she felt so strongly about these two characters. And that was in the digital version of that article, of that interview, but got removed from the print version, and then retroactively got also removed from the digital version. And then Bamco like explained that away with, hey, that was just a speculation on the part of the Gundam Ace editor and everything, and blah blah
like,
blah.
Shut up.
Yeah, it's like we can't commit to showing queer characters in an actual relationship marriage because that's maybe still kind of frowned upon in Japan, and we can't have that in our show that we sell to kids or whatever. And it's like, come on, fuck you guys. You spineless fucks. And I feel sorry for the creators because there's no doubt ever in this show that these two characters are in love. They are fucking married. Like, for a long time.
They say as such.
Yes. That's ridiculous to walk that back. Like nobody is believing you.
Like, from moment zero, they say as such.
They're throwing the creators under the bus, right? The people who made the show. They're like, no, they didn't know what they were talking about. It's like, what?
Like, shut up, dude.
Yeah, that was really shitty. But yeah, just fucking ignore Bamco. That is some weird committee bullshit, and nobody needs to listen to that. Like, I will link an article that just goes into more details into this in the show notes, and you can reach that and complain about this or get angry about this yourself, but don't spend too much time on it. It's just a big company being stupid and worried about some shit that they should be worried about. There is that, but overall, I like the second season quite a lot. I feel like, John, we have talked about a couple of Gundam shows, and I think one of the through lines we said were like, Gundam shows tend to kind of lose quality in their second seasons. And I feel like the season 2 Curse of Gundam definitely didn't hit for this one. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, in spite of some questionable at time decisions of some of the characters, I feel like this season held together pretty well.
Yes, it has a solid, plot, really dense. That's one of the things you might want to criticize about it. It's sometimes hard to follow, a bit hard to follow. Some things they could have done better, definitely. Some character behavior doesn't necessarily make much sense, but it never goes overboard to an extent where it's like, becomes annoying to watch, which we definitely had in previous Gundam shows. There were some moments where you could say, okay, you could have extended this, you could have made this more satisfying and engaging. Maybe if you gave this a bit more time to simmer, have this run a bit longer, give a couple of characters more screen time and everything. But overall, I thought it was really good. And I definitely feel better about this than about the second season of Iron-Blooded Orphans. In hindsight, I really liked how they wrapped up, except for, Prospera still being around and that one weird sentence and statement from Suletta. But I like her and Mirai acting up together as they should. And they did, Bamco. Go fuck yourself. And it was a nice ending. I was satisfied with how the show wrapped up and how it ran its course. There were some kick-ass action scenes in it, which you want from Gundam. The soundtrack is fantastic. It looks good. It's just, it's a really good Gundam show. It's definitely the best one I've seen in recent times, maybe minus Thunderbolt, I guess. Still need to watch some of the movies. And really good stuff. And it seems like you feel the same, John.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is definitely... I don't know where I would rank this off the top of my head without really going to a big discussion. And I don't think we want to take the time to do that amongst the other Gundam series I've watched. But this overall, this is pretty high up there, I think. I would say within the top 10. Maybe I would dare to say even top 5. Yeah,
it's definitely high up there. Right now I would have to think about what I would rank higher, but it's definitely... Probably doesn't top Origin, and some of the other stuff. But
in spite of my there's so much UC stuff, I still love Origin.
Yes, Origin is really good, and there's some other alternate universe stuff that's really good. So I wouldn't either know where to rank it, but it's really maybe it does top Origin. I don't know. I would have to probably rewatch stuff and see. But I really, really like this show. And where can people watch it, John?
I mean, you can watch it on Crunchyroll. I think you may be able to watch it on the Gundam Info YouTube channel as well. I feel like without looking it up, I feel like off the top of my head, you could probably find this very easily to watch, no matter where you live and what streaming services you have available.
And you should watch this, because despite some minor criticisms, I think these are really two great seasons of Gundam, and some unusual characters and some unusual character focus and everything, and I like that a lot. Could have maybe done with one more core, extending some of the scenes and everything, but overall, I thought this was great and a lot of fun. And that's it with our reviews for this season, but there's still one more thing we have to do. Best of the season! Okay, best of the season time. We had a couple of great shows this season. A lot of good stuff. John, you want to take the lead here?
I feel like we have I have two clear winners. I mean, we just got done talking about one of them. Mm-hmm. The other, you know what I'm going to say.
Yes.
You know exactly what I'm going to say.
The same. I will say, and the one that is my winner.
It's Golden Kamuy.
Well, then we're talking about different shows. I'm surprised.
Are we?
Yes. I mean, yes, I love Golden Kamuy. Absolutely. And I'm
forgetting something.
Yes, you're forgetting the first the first show that we reviewed.
I'm forgetting Vinland Saga.
Exactly.
Oh God! There's three shows that were.
Well, then you have a tougher time to decide than I do, because for me the winner is absolutely clear. Because I thought Vinland Saga season 2 was just fantastic, pretty much without flaw. So I can't not choose this as my winner. I mean, hey. I liked Heavenly Delusion, minus, the penultimate or the thing that happens in the finale of the show. I loved Golden Kamuy. Fucking fantastic continuation of that story. Just, there is no doubt about that. This is one of the all-time greats up to this point, and I can't think of a way this will wrap up that will not make me happy. Hell's Paradise was a good start to a nice shonen show. Demon Slayer had probably its best season.
I forgot about that too. Ugh.
And Witch from Mercury, we just talked about, like you said. Also fantastic second season. Overall great wrap up to that show. But, man, Vinland Saga season 2 is just... I can't not choose that, because that was such a great, surprisingly quiet show for a long time, considering how action-packed the first season was, and then like a complete shift to a completely different style of show, which went much more into character exploration and tackled really heavy topics, like slavery, for example, and did a pretty decent job at it. Like, considering what other anime do with that topic. This was really...
But you love Shield Hero.
As if it was only Shield Hero, man. I don't know why slavery is so popular in anime. I don't get it. Why is that so... Why does it have to be tackled by so many shows and so badly? Like, Vinland Saga is the only show that I can think of that does a thoughtful discussion on that topic. With actual thought on it, and not horrible things to say about slavery and ways to employ that plot device, quote unquote. So yeah, I was grateful for how gracefully Vinland Saga handled that topic during its runtime. And yeah, like, I didn't even mention, like, and beat myself up for that in regards to what the carve poem also meant. Like, the most obvious thing is, like, carve it into the land and whatever. The characters' lives are literally carved into their hands, and that's why there's so much focus put on hands in that show. And
that's true.
That of course links to that clicked after the review, after we talked about it, and I listened while editing. I was like, you dumbass, why did you not mention that? That's why that poem is also in there, and that's why there is so much focus on showing characters' hands and everything. Because, that it shows the lives they lived, and it also shows, the life of love and hate and everything they lived. And what a great show! God damn it! I talked about this at length when we reviewed it, so go listen to that review. I don't want to celebrate this again too much, because we're already running very long. But goddamn, Vinland Saga Season 2 is a monumental achievement, in my opinion, in terms of character writing and actually tackling some really difficult topics and a really underused setting, doing some really cool historical fiction stuff. I loved that season equally as much as Season 1, but for different reasons. Because it's kind of a very different show in this season, for the most part. So, hey, I'm already done with Best of the Season, man. Considering the competition, it shouldn't have been so easy, but it was. So now you have to You have to make Sophie's choice. Not Sophie from Witch from Mercury, but because she made the wrong one. But this is. I'm sorry for you.
Well, here's the thing, and I thought about this while you were talking. Demon Slayer in Golden Kamuy will be coming back.
Yes.
So they'll have another shot at this. And even though even though, I've been kind of on Demon Slayer, I thought, the latest season was a lot of fun and had some great moments and had some interesting character bits. And, this season of Golden Kamuy has us, hurtling towards a heck of a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the more interesting one to speak about is probably Gundam, which from Mercury. So I think, because obviously there's not going to be a second season, or there's going to be, maybe there might be an OVA or a movie compilation or something, but I don't foresee them being like, oh, we have like more significant story to tell. I think what they told stands on its own.
I think there is a line under in the final splash screen, like at the end of the last episode, that says thanks for watching this show and experiencing it with us, or something like that, to the end. So it's like, no, we're done. It's like an obvious statement on that. Like, if it's like, no, this was the story we had to tell, and we're done with this now. So like you said, I don't think this is coming back in any big way. Maybe showing something that happened in between seasons or stuff like that, but that's it. Maybe some little epilogue thingy, maybe like a one-shot thing, but I don't think even that. And yeah, so it's...
So yeah, I'm willing to give it to Witch from Mercury. Like we were saying, it's probably the best thing that, they've made Gundam in a long while.
Yeah, at least when it comes to the main series, right? When it comes to, hey, the big Gundam series. I mean, what was the last? The last was Iron-Blooded Orphans. What was the one before that? Was that fucking...
I think that might have been G-Reco.
Yeah.
Which...
That is, I think, that is not comparable.
Like, I'm going to fact check myself real quick, but I'm pretty certain that it was G-Reco.
Yeah.
So going backwards, it was Witch from Mercury, Thunderbolt, Iron-Blooded Orphans, Origin, Reconquista, and G.
So yeah, I mean, Thunderbolt was good, but also...
I don't know if that picked up on the mic, but even the dog thought so.
I didn't pay attention, but maybe. Yeah, I mean, Thunderbolt was good, although I don't think I finished it. I think I only watched the first season of that. But I feel like Witch from Mercury might have been better, and also that felt like a very small, closed-off thing as well. I don't know. Was Thunderbolt Universal Century stuff, though, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
I mean, I hem and haw a lot about UC, but there's also a lot of UC that I actually enjoy, so I guess I'm just a giant hypocrite.
I mean, same for me, right? I mean...
I honestly would like to go and eventually watch... I mean, at least the compilation movies of like Zeta and Double Zeta, even though I think with Zeta they kind of changed the ending from what I've heard.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I didn't watch those. I watched the original compilation movies and Char's Counterattack.
Yeah, as well as Char's Counterattack. I keep forgetting I want to watch that someday too.
Yeah. So there's still more Gundam to go, but for this season, yeah, it makes totally sense to choose Witch from Mercury. Also, you already gave 2 Best of the Season awards to Golden Kamuy, so don't feel bad about not choosing it this time.
Did I do it twice? Oh,
yes.
God, what's the matter with me?
Season 1 and 2. Hey, I did the same for we both did the same for Attack on Titan for a lot of the Attack on Titan seasons. So
yeah,
it's not like this hasn't happened before. So yeah, and Mob Psycho 100, of course, at every season of Mob Psycho 100. I think.
Yeah, well, Mob deserves.
Hey, if it's a good show, it's a good show. So, but for this, we can be very happy with our choices, I think. And you should definitely watch these 2 shows. And watch the other ones while you're at it that we reviewed this season, because there were not really any bad ones in that. So, yeah, go see it. We actually don't know what we'll do next season, because I have like 1 show from last season that is actually finished that I could review. John has, I think, like 1 or 2 small ones that don't maybe merit a full review. So we'll see what we do. We'll probably do a sneak peek only episode for the next thing, and then we'll go from there. Maybe do another small one where we review the small stuff that we have. But also, it probably doesn't make sense to pick back of Best of the Season next. We'll see. But
I mean, guess we can wing it. I mean, maybe I was saying to CC before we were recording, I might try and watch, some other stuff that I've been neglecting, but also I don't plan on, I don't know if I plan on doing like reviews of that stuff, but we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And either way, we will be back eventually. Maybe this will be a very season light on episodes, but this season you got 4. So I think you will even though if there was a lot of waiting time between of some of them, but you got 4. And so it's fine if you maybe next season get only 2. We'll see. Whatever. The season after that is probably going to be packed as hell because there's so many new interesting shows coming out this season. And we're going to talk about probably a lot of them in the next episode in the sneak peek. So until then, take care of yourself and stay frosty. And we'll be back.
Peace.
And that is a wrap on the 148th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in this podcast is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody.